Hello, everyone, and welcome to Off Road with Frank Ferraro and Andrew Cattaneo. And today, our guest is Scott Gordon. He is the president and founder of Core IR. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So
Great to
great
have
seeing you. It's been a while.
Great seeing you. It sure has. Sure has.
So you guys know each other.
We do. We go way back.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, probably well over 20 years. But
Oh, gosh.
I bet, I don't know if you mind my saying this. A fun fact about you that a lot of people might not know is
Uh-oh.
not that long ago, maybe a long time ago, were you not a professional soccer player in your early days? Do you mind my saying that?
I wasn't a professional. I did some, I was a soccer player and a hockey player actually, but I had a nice career in soccer, but it wasn't professional, but it was pretty good.
Well, that's awesome. And that's always, I
Yeah.
think, a fun way to start a conversation is to find something out about a person that most people don't know. And your career has just been pretty stellar. And I know we were even talking a little bit earlier about the differences. A lot of people, when they're just exposed to what investor relations is, how
Yeah.
does that differ from, and they're vastly different. And why don't we
Yeah.
turn it over to you to kind of go through what those differences are?
Sure. Our firm started as a traditional boutique investor relations firm, and we were providing and still continue to provide kind of three key services: investor engagement, capital markets advisory, and communications. And then about 3 years ago, we had this thought that there was really a gap in PR firms servicing micro and small cap companies with an understanding of investor relations and how public relations really integrates with the communications work that investor relations firms do, and thus was born Core Public Relations, which is, so it's Core IR and Core Public Relations
Got
are
it.
our two. And now we also have Core Digital, which is kind of a subset of the PR group as well. And so, to us, that's really kind of where the nexus of IR and PR come together. It's leveraging brand, engaging with the public so that you're serving kind of both masters of the investing public and the consumer public. And that
Yes.
can include kind of B2B or B2C or just straight up addressing consumer needs, depending, of course, on the company and the type of products and services that they have. And so that was kind of how that was born. Many public relations firms they work with public companies and they're very adept at carrying out public relations, but do they really have a focus and a specialty in understanding the specific needs of small cap and micro cap in their arenas, and how to address, bringing together public relations functions
Yeah.
that serve that master, if you will. And so that's how that came about.
It's a whole different thing with the small caps and the larger caps. What are some of the benefits of integrating IR and PR strategies, especially for smaller publicly traded companies?
Well, larger cap companies have marketing departments and media, media folks, and a broader set of resources that smaller companies don't necessarily have access to. And so the beauty of bringing public relations into micro and small cap is really bringing an extension of the team to bring out the brand. Larger cap companies have brand established already, right? They are really working within a machine that is well oiled and is addressing brand promotion, engagement with their stakeholders in kind of channels that are well established. Smaller cap and micro cap companies are really kind of at the beginning stages of that process. And so bringing in public relations at this stage of their evolution really is the beginning of that process. So when we talk about how do we establish thought leadership, how do we establish CEOs as experts within their fields and experts within their space, how do we get the brand recognized and recognized by both investors and by consumers and other businesses, as it were, and then leverage all of the aspects of interviews, presentations, participation in events, getting on podcasts, getting picked up in the media, having, all of those things happening that really position the company to be able to say, and shout from the hills, we're here, this is what's special about us, and this is why you need to pay attention. And that, of course, is really the goal of what IR is trying to do with the investing public, right? We're here, this is why we're special, this is why you should pay attention to us and look at us as a potential portfolio holding. But the public relations part of that really rounds out the rest of that message to the broader public.
You know what I'm hearing you say, and it really culminates so much in the micro cap space. It sounds like you're coming into a lot of these as an investor relations expert for these smaller companies that don't really know how to communicate with their investors. And you're recognizing that they haven't really had that exposure yet. So how lucky for them that they're not only getting the job of being public, we all know is a second job, right? For these CEOs and for their departments. So they need training on that, but you're able to go a little bit deeper into their product, their branding, how to get out there. And that's nice that you're, core IR/PR. It's a silent P, isn't it? But it's there.
It's there.
It is.
And I'll tell you something. I mean, years ago, even when I was a market maker and we'd see all these companies come on, people had sometimes the flip side. They had a great story. They had a great product. They were selling product like crazy. Except when they got listed, nobody bought their stock because they just weren't marketing to the right audience. They were marketing to the general public for their product, but they weren't marketing to an investment audience. And that's one of the reasons why I created Corporate Roadshow 25 years ago, to help companies that had good products but didn't know how to reach the investment community. This is why it's such a great transition right now. And I see when you say it's the silent P, it really brings what you're doing into the whole realm of helping out a company. A couple other things and there's a lot of things that we could talk about when PR and IR come together, and I do want to ask you a few things. But what do you think some of the challenges are, aside from money, either or, between having a cohesive plan in a company, between, obviously what you're doing for IR and PR is great. A lot of people don't do that. And so you're bringing something different to the table. What do you think it benefits the smaller companies? Do you work with them at all? Do you handle smaller companies? Or
we do. And our focus is really the micro and small cap space. It's companies with market caps of, let's say, $1.5 billion on down, right? And I think probably the sweet spot in there is somewhere between 500 and $1 billion. CEOs are experts in their established spaces, right? But they're not necessarily experts in telling their story, knowing where to tell that story and how to tell that story effectively to accomplish both IR goals, which really are engaging with investors or potential investors and constituents and stakeholders to appeal to them, and again, present the company as a potential portfolio holding, right? As a potential, it's certainly as a resource to learn about, but it's really to expand their shareholder base, to hopefully create stability in their share price, and perhaps even an increase in that share price over time as they execute. And so the challenges they face are really having a firm grasp on the narrative message that they're telling and mastery over how to tell it effectively. That's really the goal of IR. Of course, helping them to manage Reg FD and compliance aspects of of portraying themselves and telling that message. We provide guidance for that. They also face challenges in the context of their operations in capital formation, right? There's a continuum that they're on where they've either simply just raised money or will be needing to raise capital at some point in the future, or maybe they're well capitalized and that's not an issue. But capital formation is certainly one of the aspects that creates some challenges, especially around messaging and the timing of capital formation
Yes.
activities. And so, we are advisors in how to help them through navigating, again, Reg FD related regulatory constraints and requirements, so that when quiet periods are upcoming or other limitations on messaging present themselves, we are there to help guide them. Of
You're
course, then,
educating them. What I'm hearing, Scott, is
absolutely,
you're really providing an
absolutely,
education and even
yes.
overlapping on, some really important legal things that they need to be aware of. Not
Oh,
necessarily
big
that it's
time.
legal advice, but man, they need to understand what the limitations are, what they're allowed to say, and
Absolutely.
when. And you said something that, always resonates with me when I hear the term mastery. It sounds like your experience with, maybe in the past being well trained, having good coaches. I bet you have these clients of yours practice. I bet you have them
Oh, we
doing
do.
reps and
Oh my
practicing
gosh,
how you're going to be, in
we
front of a
do.
microphone, how you're going to be reacting
Yeah.
to those questions, because it's so important to practice. That's how you rise in your mastery. And I love hearing that that's part of the advisory work that you
Oh
provide.
yeah. And it's funny, I did some public speaking training a ways back, and we do act as, what we call presentation effectiveness coaches, okay? Where
Mhm.
we are literally coaching our CEOs in how to, it's not just to be able to tell your story well, it's to be able to and understand the points in the story that are going to really bring your audience in and want them to learn more. It's understanding how to use things like voice inflection and cadence and pausing and public speaking tools, right?
Energy
So that
transference, which you're so
it
good at.
is absolutely, you can be quiet and draw people in, or you can be very loud and boisterous, or, these are, once we have what I call, they're masters of their content, then we can get into how to
Love
present
it.
that content. And so, it's a really fun process to watch their evolution. And we actually, I have advised, we have this training homework that we give our CEOs or our management teams, where they've literally got to go into a bathroom, close the door, present to themselves in particular ways over this time
Awesome.
period, and all this stuff, which they always find really weird and uncomfortable at first. But at the end of it, they're like, oh, wow, this is really, wow,
That's how
this
you rise.
really,
That's how you rise in your
it
mastery. It's
is,
pushing yourself
you
to do
know,
something that might be a little
yeah,
uncomfortable. So
yep,
applause to you, because
yeah,
that,
thank you.
I think, sets you apart.
Yeah,
And
I
what
hope
else
so,
does? Tell us, share with us what you think. Also,
you
before we get
know,
into crisis management and those other things that I know
yeah,
you're
yeah,
really
I was
good
going to go
at,
there too, but
I'm curious
um,
what you think.
when it comes to public relations, it's a whole other set of training, right? So we provide media training, for example, so that when, and the goal is really to try and help our CEOs get on, top tier media, broadcast media. We've had folks on
Top 10 Wall
Fox,
Street podcasts.
right?
Hello?
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. How do you help somebody get into an interview with top tier media, or get on television and get on Fox Business? And we've done that, and we've trained, our CEOs in order to do that with very, very specific media training, so that they're comfortable when they get into these situations. That's really, that's one aspect of this. It's getting people comfortable. It's look, they live their business, right? So they understand how to convey and respond, and to get their message out in a public relations perspective. But are they comfortable doing it? And that's really, are they comfortable in the position of being a thought leader? Are they comfortable with speaking awards and other engagements where they're, dealing with the public and educating the public? Those are things that I think are really specialized. in terms of helping them to gain that sense of comfort so that they're out there, doing their best and bringing their best when they're doing it. And so, again, those are elements of the public relations practice that we pursue that I think really bring that integration together, right? Because look, they're serving both of those masters at the same time. And it's a really wonderful thing to see happen when all of that comes together,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you think, I mean, and I know you probably have some clients, but the big thing about PR and IR when they both come together is, as Andrew, as you mentioned, crisis management. How IR and PR teams deal with crisis to ensure consistent and transparent communications. Have you had any experiences with that over at Core?
Not naming
We
names,
have.
of course. Just give us a.
No, we
just to
have,
get, a general
absolutely.
example.
No, and this is, I'm glad you asked that because crisis management it's an inevitability. Okay.
Right, yeah.
It just is. It's a part of your communications plan. It's part of your communications responsibilities, and things happen that are unexpected that require, responses that are quick in development because they need to be, and thorough in their preparation for how to ameliorate potential negative impacts. And so, yes, we have assisted a number of our clients to address unexpected things that have had potentially negative implications or implications that would cause uncertainty in the market, right? I can think of a biotech company that had an FDA issue that was unexpected, and they responded to it with, providing the market with instant perspective about the
They
context.
got ahead of it.
Right. What was happening there and what the implications of it were relative to how the press was picking it up and how, the perspective in the market was being shaped. And so that they had control over that narrative. And that's a really, really important part of crisis communications. It's having control of that narrative so that you are informing the public and informing your constituents and stakeholders and keeping them, in a sense, contained and satisfied that you are proactive, that you're being responsible, that you are
Being transparent.
That's right.
Which
That's
is like,
right.
so that's what these
Yes.
regulations are all about.
Yes.
Investor
yeah.
protection, transparency, integrity, and
Yes.
that's what you're helping them do. So
And
that's
it's
great.
it's great, with your legal background, you're right there alongside us in that process, right? And we're constantly working with counsel and SEC counsel and advisors to ensure that we are not just meeting regulatory guidelines and compliance guidelines, but that we're doing everything we can within those boundaries to ensure that people stay informed, that they stay informed with the depth of information that's going to allow them to make informed decisions and not respond to kind of the knee-jerk,
Yeah.
everyday investor's perspective that may not be as informed as it could be, and so it's great to work with you and other lawyers in that context. It's very much a team effort. And, let's not forget the role that social plays in this too.
Yes.
Yeah.
The digital strategy here, we are in a different age than we were. I mean, we just are. And to not acknowledge the various channels that social now comprises, be it LinkedIn, which is a very prominent one, X, Instagram, TikTok, which, is
We'll see.
in
It's
the
on.
process of is in the process of being, at least it's still on, and we'll see what happens there. But there are many others too. There's a bevy of them, and so having a cogent digital strategy and a social media management approach is part and parcel part of that responsibility. But it's a wonderful opportunity if leveraged properly. And that also blends into like managing your SEO. The
Yes.
front end and the back end of SEO of a company is, kind of like
It's an overlay.
Oz.
It can't be everything, but a good LinkedIn post, and back over to you in a second, it's like a mini speaking engagement. It is an
truly is.
opportunity to show your thought leadership,
Yep.
even shoot it a
Yep.
little video. It's incredible how much engagement you can encourage just by using that platform. So back over to you, Scott.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I was going to say, what happens kind of on the back end of things is like Oz behind the curtain, pulling the levers and making sure that content is, is
Consistent.
managed
Yeah.
and consistent. And, we worked with one client. There's a great, crisis management win. And, they had some negative press. They wanted to see if they could develop a communication strategy that would help to mitigate the impact of that and drive that down in the searching and whatnot with, updated, fresh content that would really gain the focus. And look, negative things happen. They're part of our reality. But they don't have to be maintained as the focus, because companies are ever evolving, they're ever executing. And so you have to kind of keep the focus on what's fresh and what's new.
Yeah.
And digital strategy is part and parcel a part of that process. And I think a lot of companies aren't really aware of how to leverage that. And that's a part of the PR and the public relations activity set that we provide and that we have brought to bear, that has had really strong results in helping to evolve that message. And it's something that you really have to get a handle on, as much as it is important to tell the right story.
Yeah.
You've got to have the infrastructure out there in order for that story to be promoted and to be as prominent as it can be.
Absolutely. Scott,
yeah.
last question. Advice for CEOs. What advice would you give to a CEO that wants to come on with you and really wants a unified investor relations and public relations program?
To me, it's having an openness to developing an approach to communications together, and to really experiencing our difference in how we develop a comprehensive strategy that's integrating both the goals of IR and the goals of public relations. That entails a deep dive into the core messaging of the company, but then also the shared goals of promoting management into positions as thought leaders and spreading that word across every channel, atop every mountain that you can be. And so I think the best advice I can give is to be open to exploring, right? And to really trust in the expertise of your teams that you're bringing in.
Amen.
Because, I love to hire experts. We have a team of experts, both on the IR side and the PR side, from equity analysts who were, publishing at great houses, and portfolio managers who were, prominent in micro and small cap, to we have a doctor on staff who's, had experience on the life sciences side and the capital markets side, capital markets expertise in, leaders in that field. And of course, leaders in public relations and all of the people under them in terms of writing, communications, and digital and media. And so it's trusting in the expertise of the team's capabilities that you're bringing in, right? I'm not an expert in cancer research, right? My CEO is. And so I want to leverage that expertise. I'm an expert in communications and public relations, and he needs to leverage that from me in order to get him where he needs to be. And that's the advice. It's to really understand how to leverage those distinct advantages. And the things that really succeed are teams that are built with that mutual understanding and leverage.
So well expressed. And there's nothing more important than, looking at what you put together by ways of cohesive team that can properly guide and advise a client. I just want to acknowledge your passion for this. It's clear that this is something that makes you really happy to get up in the morning.
does.
And is there anything else that you'd like our downloaders to know? Something about your vision, your mission, something from the heart?
Look, there are a lot of choices out there for resources. I think the magic in what we bring to this table is in the people that we have assembled and in the approach that we take, which is sensitive, it's comprehensive, it's a shared vision by a team that has the same energy and the same motivation and the same drive to want to accomplish grand and wonderful things. And we established Core IR. Our mantra is experience the difference, and that's kind of what we represent. And it's something that I'm exceptionally proud to have joined my partner Chuck Bennett in building and crafting. And it's a privilege to be able to do it and do it as well as we do.
I think the
So,
world of Chuck, and
you
you've
know,
got a great team,
yeah.
if you don't mind my saying. They're
Yeah, thank you.
stellar.
Hey, Scott, I want to thank you for coming on today. It was a pleasure
Thank
to
you,
hear
guys.
about Core IR PR.
Thanks for the
And
opportunity.
if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's your website? How can they get?
Yeah, it's www.coreir.com. And then from there, you can find all kinds of info about both our investor relations, public relations, our digital strategies. We also do some website development. We have a recruiting arm for senior executives because we're so tied into, so many different sectors and areas. And so there's a world of expertise to find on coreir.com, and you can certainly get in
Wonderful.
touch with us there.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It's really
coming on. I
wonderful. I
appreciate it.
appreciate it.
All
Thank you.
righty.
All right, guys.